confirmed. Okay, so it is 12:01, March 4th, 2017. And once again, thank you for joining the Maquis Webcast. I'm recording this. It will be posted up on YouTube and on the Maquis website and on the Facebook page, as well as our Twitter feed, our Twitter page. Today's subject is the raid in Yemen. Recently, I believe it was January 28th or 29th, depending on what side of the international dateline you are on. There was a Special Forces raid led by the United States Navy SEALs. It included several elements. It included some special forces of another Arab nation. It included the Quick Reaction Force of the United States Marine Corps. And it went pretty wrong. I think that's been pretty well covered. We're not going to cover why we are in Yemen. We're not going to cover the history of Yemen. We're not going to really delve into that. Today's scope is going to be the raid itself, and we're going to take a look at two things. We're going to look at the tactical side, which is what happened on the ground, and we are going to look at the political side, what happened in the White House, and how the Trump administration handled the situation. With that said, I think it's important to note that I am a military veteran myself, United States Marine Corps infantry. I've got a few pictures here to show you guys. This is the unit in which I belong to, 1st Battalion, 8th Marines, Heavy Weapons Company. I was a member of a heavy weapons platoon, specifically a Dragon Gunner, anti-tank missile system. This is a screenshot of our unit crest that was on our T-shirts, and I show you this to kind of give you my background. I get my bona fides, for lack of a better term. I'd also like to send. This is the squad that I was assigned to. This is what real Marines look like, and this was a great day. This was a jungle warfare school in Okinawa, Japan, and we had just gotten done running the endurance course, and it was a challenge. I should say that as United States Marines, we consider ourselves the finest fighting force in the world. When it absolutely positively needs to be destroyed overnight, you send the United States Marine Corps. However, today's subject will focus on the SEALs, how they handled the situation in Yemen. And just as kind of a side note, there is a rivalry between the Marine Corps and the SEALs. They claim to be the best. We claim to be the best. And to kind of highlight that, that's just a matter of pride. When we apply ourselves to something, we take a lot of pride in what we do. It doesn't matter what your job is. You could be a car mechanic. You could be a sportscaster. Heck, you might be a janitor at a school. But when you have a job and you take pride in yourself and you take pride in what you do and you take pride in your work, you do the job right. And you're apt to say that you're better than everybody else. So there is a natural rivalry between the SEALs and the Marine Corps, but we'll be putting that rivalry to the side today. The United States Navy SEALs are some of the most exceptional men, uh, some of the most exceptional fighting individuals and special operations people uh, that you have ever seen in human history. Um, their acceptance test, which is called BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition Seal, is one of the most brutal, if not the toughest, physical and mental course that a human being can go through. Now, of course, United States Marines will tell you the same about their training. The Green Berets, the Rangers, Air Force Special Operations. We're all going to say the same thing. It's pretty darn tough, but the United States Navy SEALs carry a special place in my heart because I've actually been to Escondido, or I'm sorry, Coronado, California. I used to live out there. And, if you're living in Coronado right now or if you're on vacation in California and you want to go see what it takes to be a United States Navy SEAL, they're out there training on the beach right now. It doesn't matter what time of day. It doesn't matter what weather conditions. It doesn't matter whatever circumstances going on. Those guys are out there right now training, getting ready to go to war, finding out if they have what it takes to go to war, finding out what it takes to be a United States Navy SEAL. And I've seen it with my own eyes, and it's incredible. Again, I'm a United States Marine. I consider myself to be, the best. But I'm here to tell you, um, I have my weaknesses. And I can be cold and I can be wet. I cannot be cold and wet at the same time. And as a United States Navy SEAL, you are cold and wet all the time. And I've seen their training, and I'd like to give myself credit for, back in my day, being a younger man, being in the shape that I was in, that I would, I'd like to say, yeah, I could have done that. I'm here to tell you, seeing it with my own eyes, I don't know. I don't know. Uh, it's an absolutely grueling process to be accepted into the United States Navy SEALs. And as a United States Marine, it's hard for me to say that, but let me tell you, if you think you got what it takes, if you think you can be one of the 5% of the individuals that actually makes it all the way through SEAL training, my hat's off to you. You deserve all the respect in the world. And that I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. I think that's enough said. To give you an idea of what it takes to be a United States Navy SEAL, I went and I got this one picture right here. And I've studied some of SEAL training. I watch a lot of military channel and documentaries. I like to know what I'm talking about, basically. And the picture you're seeing right here is a phase of BUD school, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL School. This is called waterproofing. And what you're seeing here are men in the swimming pool. And what you might not be able to make out, and I'll see if I can blow it up a little bit here. You'll notice that everybody has their arms behind their back. You'll notice that their feet are together. They are in a pool with their hands tied behind their back and with their feet tied together. And this is how you learn how to manage yourself in the water. SEAL stands for Sea, Air, and Land. You, as a United States Navy SEAL, must be prepared to fight in any environment. You must be prepared to swim 10 miles to the beach line, come out of the water, and be ready to fight. And that starts right here in the pool, because if you can't handle it in the pool, you sure as heck cannot handle it 60 feet beneath the water, crawling out of a nuclear-powered submarine, and then swimming the 10 miles to the beach, and dealing with that kind of misery, dealing with that kind of stress, with those kinds of hazards. And I was a decent swimmer. I mean, I'm not Olympic caliber, not, I was an average swimmer. And the very idea of being thrown into a pool with my hands tied behind my back and with my feet tied together, quite frankly, freaks me out. And I highlight this to you so that you can have an idea of the absolute commitment and mental discipline that these guys have. They are the best. They are the top 1% of our fighting forces. Um, they are the most lavishly equipped special forces unit in the world. They are the most expensive special forces unit in the world. I don't know the exact figure that it takes to train a Navy SEAL to full completion, to go through Bud School, to go to jump school, i.e., learning how to jump out of planes, be a parachutist, to go to Halo School, which is high altitude, low opening training, scuba school, learning how to manage, become a scuba diver, and so on and so forth. But I think it ranks in the millions for one Navy SEAL. Um, these guys are the best. Best equipped, best prepared, best trained, best motivated. And I think this picture really kind of drives that point home to you. SEALs operate in a world of secrecy, necessarily so. You don't run around generally telling everybody that you're a Navy SEAL. And anybody who does come up to you and tell you, hey, I was in the SEALs and so on and so forth, and they're loud about it and they brag about it, you need to take that person with a grain of salt. You need to take that person somewhat skeptically, because Navy SEALs just don't operate that way. They have nothing to prove. They don't need to impress you. They have already completed the hardest training on God's green earth. Why in the hell do they need to brag to you? They don't. The other side of it is that these guys live in a world of secrecy. They do things that you will never ever hear about in the news. Because if they're in the news, then that means generally things have gone wrong. They've had some sort of a failure. Um, these guys get in and out of places that you can only imagine. These are the kind of guys that will pop out of your bowl of Cheerios at breakfast, and you will never see them coming. You will never hear them coming. And again, you're not supposed to. That's not the idea of Special Forces. Special Forces employ stealth as their primary means of execution. And if they blow stealth, then something's gone wrong. These guys are shadows. They were never ever there. And this picture kind of highlights that. This is a picture of a SEAL team that I found online, which, I was pretty impressed to find it. But you can see the black marks over their faces. You can see the fact that these guys right here, we don't want you to know who we are. We don't want you to be able to identify us. We don't want some bad guys that maybe have survived a special operations or a visit by the United States Navy SEALs. We don't want them to come home and be able to identify these guys. These guys live in the shadows. They live in a completely different world. That is my point. We're going to get to some more pictures here in a minute. But for right now, I kind of want to delve into what happened in Yemen. Now, one thing you need to know about the Maquis. My job is not to make up your mind. My job is to present you information. You will make up your minds for yourselves as to what you are seeing. As I am fond of saying, I am not Joe Scarborough. I am not Chris Matthews. I am not Bill O'Reilly, and I'm certainly not Alex Jones. I am not going to tell you what to think. I am simply going to present the information to you and let you make up your own mind. Every once in a while, I'll take some sort of liberty to kind of, call a ball or a strike a strike. But again, my primary job is to bring you facts. And every single fact will be verifiable. If you notice here off to the right, you're going to see that I have my notes. And you'll see here highlighted in blue websites that demark every single source that I have found. And as we go along here, I'll be bringing those sources up for you to see on the screen. And at the end of the webcast, I will be posting these references up on the Maquis Facebook page, on the YouTube video that I am currently recording, and they'll be posted up there. And I invite all of you. I invite any and all of you to fact check me, fact check this reality, question your reality, question the facts. Donald Trump is doing his level-headed best to distort reality. That is the primary reason why I have started the Maquis in the first place. We like to talk about resistance. We like to talk about organizing protest. We like to talk about, making a mighty noise and letting Mr. Trump and his minions know, that we don't stand for this. However, without the proper information, you will never know what you're protesting. You will never know what you are resisting. You will never know where to apply the proper pressure. And that all starts with verifiable information. And that is what I'm here to do for you. So with that said, let's dig into my first two references that I want to present here. Our first reference here, the raid itself. This is the tactical point of view. This is what happened on the ground. The two references that I have here that I've compiled this data from are from NBC News and from BBC News. The picture you're seeing here is of a 8-year-old girl. Her name was Nawar El-Alaki, and she was the 8-year-old daughter of an American-born terrorist that was killed, I believe, in a drone strike a couple of years back. And she happened to stay in Yemen. And she is one of the civilian casualties that resulted from this raid. Now, you may have your own personal feelings about civilian casualties. And we all should. The loss of life, any life, be they military, be they civilian, is regrettable in any circumstance. However, it would be naive to think that in a shooting war that things don't happen. Civilian casualties have been a part of war since somebody picked up a rock and threw it at somebody else and missed and accidentally hit the person standing next to them. They were there at the Battle of Thermopylae. They were there at the Battle of Carthage. They were there at the Battle of Dresden. They were there at the Battle of Way. And as long as there is war, we will have civilian casualties. And that's what makes war something to be avoided. When Donald Trump says things like, "I love war," he clearly shows his lack of depth and empathy and understanding as to exactly what he is talking about. And any warrior worth their salt, any warrior, any true soldier, I'm not talking about jihadis, I'm not talking about people that use civilians as human shields and that measure the success of their operations by how many civilians they kill. Those are not soldiers. Those are not sailors. Those are not Marines. They are not airmen. Those individuals of any side have ethics. They have a code of conduct. And mowing down civilians is not a part of that code of conduct. So, with that said, let's start digging into some facts here. The plan was for this raid, as here sourced by NBC and BBC. The plan was first drawn up in November 2016, but not approved until January under new leadership. Now, what does that mean? It means that this raid was drawn up under the Obama administration. Make no mistake, it was. It was discussed. It was theorized. Intelligence was gathered. Assets for intelligence gathering were deployed. There were even rehearsals here, as you can see, a well-rehearsed mission that was supposed to extract computers and other intelligence from an Al-Qaeda camp near a mountain village turned into a massive firefight involving Harrier jets, helicopter gunships, and gun-wielding jihadi women that killed one Navy SEAL, 14 Al-Qaeda fighters, and allegedly non-combatant women and children. According to a senior military official, one of the dead was an 8-year-old American girl, the daughter of U.S.-born Al-Qaeda leader Anwar al-Awlaki, who himself was killed in a U.S. strike in Yemen in 2011. Now, again, the civilian deaths are regrettable, especially if you're one of them. It's far from regrettable. You're dead. And, that goes far beyond regret. But one of the things I'd like to point out here is the gun-wielding jihadi women. I've gathered some other details here, and it does appear that this combat site was using women as combatants. So I know there's been a lot of, talk about how could they kill women and children. Well, some of those women were fighting back. And I think that's important to note. And as a Marine myself, I'm here to tell you, you point a weapon at me, and I've got the means to stop you, I'm going to drop you. You could be a man, you could be a woman, you could be a 15-year-old kid, you could be a Martian. If you point a weapon at me, or my fellow Marines, or the people I happen to be fighting next to, and I happen to have the means to stop you, I'm going to stop you. And your gender is pretty irrelevant to me. And it's pretty irrelevant to any other soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine worth their salt, because our job is to do the job, eliminate resistance, protect our fellow servicemen, and come home. Moving on a little bit further into what happened on the ground, the U.S. began preparations for Sunday's raid on the Al-Qaeda camp months ago, according to a senior military official. The intent of the site exploitation mission was to capture important information about a terrorist network's personnel and supplies from a specific house in the Al-Qaeda camp near Gabat Yakala in southern Yemen. Planning was intense, with almost 3 months of intelligence collection, including pattern of life, constant surveillance of the target house, and the families in nearby dwellings. What does that mean? Pattern of life. It means that you watch a location for an extended period of time to see when people are coming and going, when they're waking up, when they're going to sleep, when they're milking the goats, when they're maybe, taking a run to the village down the road, when they're praying. But that's, all of those types of intelligence gathering details go into a pattern of life observation. How do these people live? When do they move? When do they sleep? When do they eat? When do they go to the outhouse and take a crap? All of this is important in gathering intelligence for a highly detailed and complex special operation. In early December, the USS Maquis Island and its amphibious ready group, including other ships and Marines, arrived in the area to serve as the quick reaction force for American operations in Yemen. They were joined in Djibouti by the Navy SEALs, who would make up the main raiding party. It's important to note here that the SEALs generally, sometimes they go off by themselves. That's just part of the job. But generally, when there's a special operation like this or some sort of complex operation like this, there's usually a quick reaction force set for backup. In this particular case, it was the United States Marine Corps stationed on the amphibious readiness ship USS Maquis Island. And the USS Maquis Island is basically a miniature aircraft carrier. It's a little bit smaller than the, say, USS Abraham Lincoln. It's a little bit smaller than the USS Enterprise or the ships that you're used to seeing on the news. However, it does have the capability of launching aircraft, MV-22 Ospreys, CH-46 Sea Knights, CH-53 Super Stallions, which are helicopters, and also AV-8B Harrier jump jets, which are famous for being able to take off and land vertically. This one ship, and I do have a picture of it. Where are you? There she is. This one ship is capable of launching a small-scale war by itself. It basically can contain a light Marine Corps battalion. That's 3 rifle companies, a heavy weapons company, a headquarters company. It can carry some serious firepower. It can bring a headache to your coastline very, very quickly. When I served in a Marine Expeditionary Unit, I was stationed on a similar ship called the USS Guadalcanal. I was also on board a ship called the USS Wasp, which is basically a copy of the ship you're seeing right here. And when I say it can bring you a fight very, very quickly, it very much can. And as you can see, it's a small aircraft carrier. You can see the aircraft stationed on the flight deck here. And, that's what she does. That's her primary purpose in life. For those of you who do not know what an MV-22 is, an Osprey, this is the Osprey right here. This is a $75 million aircraft, and it's quite unique. It has the ability to operate like a helicopter. It also has the ability to operate like a conventional fixed-wing aircraft. Here, you can see that the rotor blades are in its vertical position. This is when it's acting like a helicopter. The second picture here that I can present to you, this is when it's acting like a conventional fixed-wing aircraft. You can see that the propellers are now tilted to its forward position. Each one of these aircraft can carry about 55 to 65 combat-loaded Marines. Its increased versatility of acting like a conventional fixed-wing aircraft gives it an extended range. I think it can fly for about 500 to 600 miles unrefueled. And it is capable of air-to-air refueling for extended flight, meaning it can stay up in the air forever. It can fly for thousands of miles and deliver its combat load of Marines virtually anywhere in the world. It is an extraordinary capability. They didn't have these aircraft when I was in the Marine Corps. We used long-range helicopters and short-range helicopters. And these aircraft right here extend the combat range of Marines to just ridiculous levels. I mean, imagine being able to put 55 to 110, ticked off U.S. Marines, 600 miles, 500 miles behind the enemy line. That's what makes them so well equipped for special operations and for amphibious operations, as you see with the United States Marine Corps. The Harrier jump jet, and I don't know if any of you guys, you know what this is. This is a great shot of the AV-8B Harrier II. This aircraft was originally designed by the British. The United States Marine Corps bought them because of our unique needs. We don't always have the luxury of operating from a conventional airfield. Sometimes we have to operate from, what pilots would tell you is a postage stamp in the middle of the ocean. And that's exactly what the Harrier can do. She's called the jump jet for a reason, because she can jump up in the air vertically and carry a impressive combat load to the target, do its job, and fight its way back to the carrier and do it all over again. As you can see here, she's conducting a vertical landing, and that's what makes her versatile. The ability to be able to operate from anywhere at any time. And she can carry cluster bombs. She can carry Maverick anti-tank missiles, Sidewinder air-to-air missiles, forward-looking infrared, low-level night vision. She is thoroughly equipped to do the job. She's also capable of air-to-air refueling. And she's an impressive piece of machinery. She's an impressive piece of engineering. The other piece of equipment that the Marines use for close-in support is called the Cobra gunship. Now, this is a helicopter, and it is the helicopter here in the foreground. And she carries a 25mm tri-barrel Gatling gun. She's also capable of carrying Hellfire anti-tank missiles, Maverick anti-tank missiles, limited air-to-air combat capability with Sidewinder missiles. She's been in service since the Vietnam War. She's tried and true. She has a crew of 2, 1 pilot, 1 gunner. And the Marine Corps has been using this aircraft forever. And as a United States Marine, I'm here to tell you, if there's a Cobra gunship over my head, I feel safe. These things will get you out of a jam. They'll walk those 25mm cannon shells 10 feet in front of you, and you will sleep like a baby, and these guys are really, really good. They have a forward-looking infrared system. They have a TV guidance system that, like I said, they can walk those bullets up, 10 feet in front of you, and you will never break a sweat. You'll never be worried about these guys hitting you. They'll be tearing up everything in front of you. That is the skill of United States Marine Corps air power. On December 21st, the SEALs joined the Marines. I covered that. So right here, basically what we're saying is that the Marines and the SEALs are marrying up. The SEALs are probably now on board the USS Maquis Island. The USS Maquis Island went to Djibouti on December 21st. The SEALs joined the Marines in a helicopter-borne training raid in Djibouti, an exercise that served as a rehearsals for Sunday's mission. Now, SEALs and Marines are highly skilled. Sometimes you don't get the luxury of rehearsing the mission. Sometimes you just have to, you do your map reconnaissance, you take your satellite overheads, you take the information that you have on hand, and you just go. That's just the way it is. In this particular case, the SEALs and the Marines got to actually conduct a rehearsal before this raid. And Djibouti is a nation, coastal nation in Africa, very close to Yemen. So the temperature, the weather conditions, all of, probably the terrain, very similar to what these guys were going to face in Yemen. A former senior Obama official said that plans for the raid were presented to the Obama National Security Team before the inauguration as part of a menu of potential actions that represented a significant expansion of U.S. activity in Yemen. After a full interagency review, the official said the Obama administration decided to pass the decision on the series of operations off to the Trump administration since they would have to commence under the new president. Now, I want that very clearly noted. The Obama administration, it's been reported several times, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the White House side of this presentation. It's been reported a couple of times that the Obama administration started this operation. That's not the case. They started the preparations for this mission. And there are reasons why they passed this down to the Trump administration, ranging from the fact that maybe the Trump administration might have a different view on national security. Maybe they might not want to commit ground troops to Yemen, to the meteorological points of view, at waiting for a moonless night. And I know that statement has been clearly covered a few times. So we'll get into all of that here in just a second. White House spokesman Sean Spicer said Wednesday that the raid was approved in an interagency deputies meeting on January 6th, and that the plan called for the raid to take place on a moonless night, which meant it would occur after Trump's inauguration. Now, just real quick, believe it or not, and it sounds like a very trivial detail, a moonless night. Well, when you're doing a hellborn assault, and you've got to walk 5 miles to the target, which is the very next line there. They walked about 5 miles to the objective. Doing it against a skyline that's got a moon casting light down on you, that's a very important detail. Special operations generally depend on stealth. Surprise is a key element in warfare. If the enemy doesn't know I'm here, if the enemy doesn't suspect that I'm coming, it's far easier to take them out, to neutralize them, because they never see what's coming at them. Contrary to the movies, contrary to Rambo and all of the things that you see in these glorified productions of war, we don't want a fair fight. We don't want our enemies to go out with a bang. We just want them to go out. And if that means we can sneak up on them, take them out silently, and not give them a fair fight, that's exactly what we're going to do. Is that unchivalrous? Perhaps. The age of chivalry died about, 6, 7 centuries ago? There is no more Queens of, Marquis of Queensberry in regards to warfare. You sneak up on the enemy, you take him out, and that's that. Because they'll do it to you, and they will not shed a tear. Then, said officials, something tipped off the targets to their approach. Depending on the account, it may have been a barking dog, or the Emirati. I cannot say that word. I've been trying to say that word for a minute. The United Arab Emirates is the nation that contributed forces to this raid. The Emiratis, perhaps. Intercepted speaking in Arabic on walkie-talkies, or the crash of a small drone surviving the target from a forward position. Now, there's 3 separate accounts right there. It is well known that dogs have a better sense of smell, a better sense of hearing. The United States Navy SEALs uses dogs in their special operations for that exact reason. And so do the bad guys. The bad guys use dogs to alert them to impending danger, impending trouble. And a dog may have started barking. A dog may have smelled something coming downwind and said, hey, you know what? I don't know what that is. I'm barking, and I'm going to alert my masters to the presence of some sort of danger. If our Arabic allies that were on the mission with us, did not take the proper safeguards to encrypt their communications, and that those radio emissions in Arabic were detected by the bad guys, well, there's another warning sign right there. Hey, who are these guys on the radio talking in Arabic? And it ain't us. Everybody stand to alert, grab your weapons. We got trouble coming. Also, there's the potential of a drone crashing out of the sky. That's going to put some bad guys on alert. Where in the hell did that come from? Basically, in short, while these guys are highly skilled, highly trained, highly dedicated, and motivated, I'm going to, shit does happen. Shit does go wrong. War is an imperfect science. I don't care how many war movies you see. I don't care how many documentaries you watch. Things go wrong. And that's just the way it is. Now, when things go wrong on your car, you take it to the shop and you pay a lot of money perhaps, or maybe you fix it yourself, but you go through some effort to fix it. When it comes to warfare, when things go wrong, people die. And there is no fixing that. There were a lot of female combatants who were part of this, said Navy Captain Jeff Davis, the Pentagon's chief spokesman, on Wednesday. We saw during this operation as it was taking place that female fighters ran to pre-established positions as though they had trained to be ready and trained to be combatants and engaged with us. Now, this is very, very important detail right here. The female fighters ran to pre-established positions. Now, I know we, as Americans, sometimes we like to think of these, jihadis as, 6th century, backward, mentally incapable cave dwellers. That's not the case. These people are prepared to kill and ready to die on any given day. And they train for it every single day. And the fact that these female fighters and potentially other fighters, it's not reported there, but the female fighters ran to pre-established positions. That means that they know they are bad guys. They have set up fields of fire. They are prepared and rehearsed on defending their position because they know potentially trouble like the Navy SEALs could be coming. And from the report here of Navy Captain Jeff Davis, that's exactly what happened. Is that these female fighters said, trouble's coming, grab my weapon, run to the tower, run to my foxhole, run to my pre-prepared position, and engage the enemy. A prepared enemy is much harder to defeat than an unprepared enemy. That's why stealth is so important. The raiding force began to take casualties. Chief Petty Officer William Ryan Owens, a veteran member of the elite team, was hit and would die of his wounds. The SEALs called for backup and for a medical chopper. A MV-22 Osprey intended for transport and rescue flew to the landing zone 8 kilometers from the firefight. But a hard landing injured several of the passengers and damaged the craft so badly it was no longer airworthy. A pair of Harrier jump jets and a pair of helicopter gunships arrived from the USS Maquis Island and joined the battle. The jets bombed and strafed the Al-Qaeda encampment, and the choppers fired on the target with their cannons. Okay, so let's surmise here. The dogs start barking. The drone falls out of the sky. The radio transmissions are detected. Surprise is now blown. The operation is now what we call compromised. The enemy is running to prepared positions. The enemy begins to engage our SEAL team and its allies. And we now start taking casualties. And this is after a 5-mile walk. The situation gets so far engaged and entrenched that the SEALs are now calling for backup. That's a pretty heavy-duty call to make. because there are probably, about 100, 120 Marines sitting on the USS Macon Island on the flight deck just waiting for the call. The Harriers and the Cobra attack helicopters are probably at what we call Alert 5 or Alert 15 status. Alert 5 means that they are ready to get in the air at 5 minutes notice. From the moment you say go, those choppers and those Harrier jump jets, 5 minutes later, they're in the air and they're on their way to the situation. Same thing with the medical evacuation helicopter and the evac helicopters and the Marines that are waiting for, as a quick reaction force. The situation becomes really, really delicate when you're now taking casualties, because you're trying to triage the casualties, you're trying to repel the enemy fire, you're trying to secure a landing zone to get the wounded out. Things have basically gone to hell in a handbasket. To make matters even more complex, one of the evacuation helicopters, or the Osprey rather, has committed to, or not committed to, but is taking a hard landing. A hard landing is a nice, polite way of saying a controlled crash. And the controlled crash was so hard and so jarring that it injured individuals in that aircraft, and the aircraft itself was no longer flyable. And because it was no longer flyable, the Harriers or the Cobras came in and conducted a strike on that aircraft, $75 million aircraft, might I add, so that it would not fall into enemy hands. But you can see how this situation adds up. I'm sure, from the planning, from the intelligence gathering, from the rehearsal in Djibouti, this was not part of the plan. It's now time to adapt to your new tactical environment. And things have gone to hell in a handbasket. This is what happened during the raid. I have the sources here highlighted, and they are verifiable. Here's the NBC News source, dated February 3rd, 2017. Here's the BBC source, same date. So as you can see, things have not gone according to plan. And that makes for a very, very long day for the United States Navy SEALs. Now, let's get to the White House side of life. This is www.defense.gov, as you can see here, Department of Defense, dated January 30th, 2017. U.S. raid in Yemen garners intelligence. I'm going to read a little bit from it. Material captured from the site will help the United States gain a deeper insight into the group's planning to help prevent terrorist attacks against innocent civilians in the United States and our coalition partner nations. He said, I believe that would be a defense spokesman. Yes, Jeff Davis. Similar site exploitation operations in Afghanistan, Syria, and Iraq have produced information about terrorist planner logistics, recruiting, and financial efforts, Davis noted. Until now, we've had limited access to terrorist sites on the ground to gain intelligence from Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. He said the operation was specifically to enable us to gather the information we need to be able to map out this group better and to prevent future foreign terrorist attacks, the captain said, noting that Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula has a number of links to very specific United States and Western focused attacks. The 3 service members' injuries occurred when an Osprey MV-22 tilt-rotor aircraft made a hard landing and became inoperable and was destroyed in a U.S. airstrike. One thing I haven't noted here is while we did lose uh, Chief Petty Officer Chief Petty Officer Owens, there were also 4 other Navy SEALs wounded. And I really want to highlight that. I really want to bring that to your guys' attention because nobody's talking to them. Nobody's talking about them. It is regrettable that Chief Petty Officer Owens died. But I think it's also important to point out the fact that there were also 4 other Navy SEALs in a condition we don't know. We don't know if they're missing legs. We don't know if they're on a respirator. We don't know if it was a hangnail. But there were 4 other United States Navy SEALs, American servicemen, wounded in action. And I'm here to tell you, from the details of this firefight here, uh, if you're into praying, you need to pray for them. You need to pray for their families. You need to pray for their parents because their fight ain't over. Moving on to the next source. This is from ABC Channel 7 News in Chicago. Oh, page no longer found. Looks like somebody removed the page. Well, I don't know if I want to proceed with this source. Because it's not verifiable. That's not part of my plan. Huh. Well, you know what? Because all of the rest of my content will probably, I'm going to say this is probably the one link that fails. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I see why it failed. 1 second here. There we go. A little bit of a typo there. Sorry about that. By the way, this is Chief Petty Officer Ryan Owens. This is his face. This is what he looks like. If you haven't seen him, this is it. This is the United States Navy SEAL that did not come home. This is what the face of your defense looks like. This is the price of freedom. 36 years old. I'm 43. I have lived longer than this man. Let that sink in. The Navy SEAL killed in the raid on senior Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula leaders in Yemen on Sunday has been identified as Chief Special Warfare Operator William Ryan Owens, according to a Pentagon statement. Owens, 36, of Peoria, Illinois, died of wounds sustained in the raid against Al-Qaeda. Quote, I extend my condolences to the family and shipmates of Chief Petty Officer William Ryan Owens, said Defense Secretary Jim Mattis in a statement. Ryan gave his full measure of our nation, and in performing his duties, he upheld the noblest standards of military service. Mattis said, the United States would not long exist were it not for the selfless commitment of such warriors, he added. I thank our gallant troops and their families for their dedication to protecting this nation, and I pass on our respects to Ryan's family in this most difficult time. The Pentagon statement did not specify Owens' unit, saying only that he was assigned to an East Coast-based special warfare unit. His Navy record indicates that he joined the United States Navy in 1998 and served with Navy Special Warfare Unit since 2002. That's 15 years of being a Navy SEAL. 3 other SEALs were wounded in a firefight with AQAP fighters during the raid. 3 other... Excuse me while I get rid of that phone call. 3 other Service members were injured during aboard a Marine MV-22 Osprey aircraft that experienced a hard landing. These are details we already know. This is dated January 31st, 2017. And it goes to reconfirm that were some female fighters that were considered legitimate combatants. And pretty much recaps everything that we've seen above here. However, there is one small little thing to note. The Navy SEAL killed in the raid on senior Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula leaders. In the earlier report, we saw that this was supposed to be a site exploitation mission, meaning we were going after cell phones, hard drives, other types of forms of hard intelligence. Please note, here in this statement, now we're targeting Al-Qaeda leaders. Think about that for a second. That's now two versions of the same story. One coming out of the Pentagon, one coming out of the Secretary of Defense who represents the Pentagon. But two versions nonetheless. I'm going to switch sources here to the New York Times. Let me bring that up for you. New York Times, Raid in Yemen, risky from the start and costly in the end. February 1st, 2017. With his two closest advisors, Jared Kushner and Stephen K. Bannon, joining the dinner at the White House along with Defense Secretary Jim Mattis and General Joseph F. Danford Jr., United States Marine Corps. Mr. Trump approved sending in the Navy SEAL Team 6, hoping the raid earlier last Sunday would scoop up cell phones and laptop computers that could yield valuable clues about one of the world's most dangerous terrorist groups. Vice President Mike Pence and Michael T. Flynn, the National Security Advisor, also attended the dinner. Mr. Trump's new security team, led by Mr. Flynn, the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency and a retired three-star general, with experience in counterterrorism raids, has said that it wants to speed up the decision-making when it came to such strikes, delegating more power to the lower-level officials so that the military may respond more quickly. Indeed, the Pentagon is drafting such plans to accelerate activities against the Al-Qaeda branch in Yemen, but doing that also raises the possibility of error. You can mitigate risk in missions like this, but you cannot mitigate risk down to zero, said William Weschler, a former top counterterrorism official at the Pentagon. There's some other interesting details in here. However, this makes the point that speed on the political side, not the military side, but speed of execution. These guys are in a rush. Mr. Flynn said it. Secretary Mattis said it. I'm going to stick up for Joseph Danford, United States Marine Corps. He's uniformed military. I'm sure he'd be happy to take his time. But where does the urgency come from? Where is this sense of rush? This mission has been pushed off for 3 months now. What makes it so pressing? Another thing I'd like to point out here, SEAL Team 6 is the best of the best. They are the most elite SEAL team that there is. However, because of the popular nature of movies and books and so on and so forth, We do not know if it was the actual SEAL Team 6. That's a term that gets tossed around very, very lightly because it's in Hollywood, it's here, it's there. If it was SEAL Team 6, fine. But I'm here to tell you, SEAL Team 4, SEAL Team 5, SEAL Team 20, doesn't really matter. They're all SEALs. They're all as lethal. So, was it SEAL Team 6? Maybe. Maybe not. We don't know. And nobody will ever know because that's just the nature of special operations. We don't go advertising, who's coming to dinner. It's just the way it is. In Washington, time for me to switch resources. This is dated February 2nd, 2017. Yemen aftermath. Trump's first military raid continues to raise questions. And because I haven't shown you some words in a minute, let me assure you that this is as real as it gets. This is not, some fake website or anything like that. These are real resources. This is the actual NPR website. You can see some of the destruction of the compound here. In Washington, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer said the raid, which he called very, very well thought out and executed, had yielded valuable intelligence about Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Spicer suggested Thursday that the loss of life in Sunday's raid was justified. When you think of the loss of life throughout America and institutions in terms of the world, in terms of what some of the individuals could have done, I think it is a successful operation by all standards, he said. Yemen has been in chaos since the fall of its government in 2011. As the poorest Arab country, it has always struggled, but its civil war has reduced it to the level of a failed state in which its one-time government, Iranian-supported Houthi rebels, Al-Qaeda and other groups, all are struggling for power. So that basically tells you right there the White House point of view. They consider it a successful mission. But again, note the narrative. One part of the White House is saying they were targeting leadership. Another part of the White House, the mouthpiece of the White House, is calling it an intelligence gathering mission. I'll ask you a very logical question. You answer it for yourselves. Why the disconnect? We've seen that this White House is quite chaotic in its execution of things. So again, why the two trains of thought? Why the two parallels? Why aren't they uniform? Why are they not in lockstep here? You answer that question for yourselves. This is U.S. News and World Report, and I will get down into this. Dated February 2nd, 2017. Spicer on Thursday stressed the raid was first conceived by the military under President Barack Obama's administration. According to a timeline he outlined, U.S. Central Command first submitted a plan to the Pentagon on November 7th. When defense legal teams vetted it on December 19th, it was approved by the Defense Department and recommended by then Defense Secretary Ash Carter to move ahead. The National Security Staff at the White House approved it and convened a meeting on January 6th of the National Security Council Deputies Committees along the highest interagency organizations for national security issues, which approved the plan so easily it was sent straight up, Spicer said. The plan at the time called for a moonless night to carry out the raid, which would only happen next once Trump had become president, Spicer said. On January 24th, Defense Secretary Jim Mattis read over the plan and sent a memo to the White House conveying his support. The next day, National Security Advisor Mike Flynn briefed Trump on the plan, and that night the president held a dinner with Vice President Mike Pence, White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, Senior Advisor and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, Advisor Steve Bannon, CIA Director Mike Pompeo, Defense Advisor retired Army Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, as well as Flynn and Mattis to study the plan, which Trump authorized. On January 26th, the deputies committees met again, which Spicer said was not required, and it reaffirmed support for the plan, which Trump formally approved that day. Trump remained in his residence throughout the mission and was briefed by his national security staff, including Mattis, on the raid and Owen's death. Now, he becomes president on January 20th, high noon. This raid is authorized and signed off January 26th. Again, logical question. This raid has been in its infancy, in its planning, if we take Sean Spicer at his word, November 7th. So do the math here. December 7th, January 7th. That's 60 days. I honestly suspect that the planning and the, I guess you could say the percolation of this raid probably extended a little bit longer than that. I won't go beyond 90 days. But let's just take him at his word here. 60 days. 60 days of planning this. As you can see here, the Trump administration gave the green light after 6 days of analysis and planning. I don't care who drew up the plan. I don't care how competent or this or that or whatever. 6 days of considering this. And look at the action pattern of President Trump and his staff for those 6 days. Do you honestly think that their focus was on this? I mean, how many executive orders did Donald Trump put into place in those 6 days? How many congratulatory phone calls did he take? How short-staffed is the National Security Council right now? Somewhat, darn near 90 days later? We're coming up on 90. Well, let's say 70. 70 days into this, and the National Security Council still is not fully staffed. And these guys give the green light after 6 days. Furthermore, what the hell is Jared Kushner and Steve Bannon doing in this discussion? I've done some research into Jared Kushner. His family may be entertaining the idea of buying the Florida Marlins at present, but he certainly doesn't have a military background. Steve Bannon actually does. United States Navy. I believe his rank was lieutenant. He was an officer. However, his duties were driving surface ships, destroyers, cruisers, so on and so forth. He has absolutely no background in special operations. None. Zero. Logically, I'll ask you, and you can make up your own mind, do either one of these individuals belong in this conversation? I mean, when compared to... I'll even give Mike Flynn some credit here. I'll give Mike Flynn, his due. Mike Flynn, on paper, has a special warfare background. James Danford has a special warfare background, counterinsurgency. James Mattis has one. I'm going to give Lieutenant General Kellogg here his due. He probably has a special warfare background. I'm not certain about the CIA director. I'm 100% certain of Ranks Priebus. I don't think that man could probably fight his way out of a Turkish whorehouse, let alone do anything worthwhile when, in one. So again, I ask you, what are these people doing in the conversation? And we all know that war is a political event, and that warriors serve political masters. There's a lot of politicians at this table. This is an important little side note right here. Draw your attention to the right side of the screen. Colin Kahl was a deputy national security advisor for the Obama administration. I believe he's currently teaching at Georgetown University, matters of international relations and international security policy. He was Vice President Biden's national security advisor, and he was one of the deputies in the committees planning this under the Obama administration. Within days of hearing, actually not within days, within hours of Sean Spicer's statement that this had been planned under the Obama administration, this is Obama's fault, so on and so forth, Colin Kahl came out on Twitter and then on MSNBC and said, no, I don't think so. And to quote the tweet here, and critically, Obama made no decisions on this before leaving office, believing it represented an escalation of the United States' involvement in Yemen. Our actions in Yemen had primarily been limited to drone strikes at this point. Because of the civil war there, we were incredibly hesitant to commit ground troops. Therefore, this action here, committing ground troops to Yemen, represented a significant escalation, a significant commitment. President Obama and the National Security Council underneath him did not view it as fair to execute such an escalation in the face of an impending presidency, i.e. Trump coming into the door. So they postponed it so that the Trump administration, out of respect to the Trump administration, could run its national security policy and make its own decision. And you can find this here, believe it or not, on Twitter. You can find the entire conversation. You can see the note here right above. Idea was for next team to run a deliberative process to assess risk. And critically, Obama made no decisions on this before leaving, believing it represented escalation of U.S. involvement, and therefore should not be something he decided a few days before leaving office. Obama thought the next team should take a careful look and run a careful process. For what I've read and heard, however, Team Trump didn't do a careful vetting of the overall process or raid. Instead, Trump apparently had dinner with Mattis and Danford and greenlit the operation. I'm going to skip a little bit further here. This resource here basically says, it repeats what Sean Spicer says. They were waiting for a moonless night. It's all the Obama administration's fault. Blah, 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 blah. This reference here in Time magazine, I'll just read the preamble to it. Some reports suggest that the Trump administration moved rashly on the decision to carry out the mission and that it may have been a risky one. However, this was a very, very well thought out and executed effort. The Times quoted Spicer as saying, according to the Times, planning for the operation began last year. We've heard all of this before. More defense, more trying to lay off the blame, more it's Obama's fault. But as you can see here, the Deputy National Security Advisor to one President Obama and one Vice President Biden clearly states that is not the case. Move forward to the next resource here. This one is very interesting. This is Time magazine. This is dated February 6, 2007. Make sure this commercial doesn't pop up. Oh, there we go. The secret target of Yemen raid escaped and is now taunting Trump. Now, remember, we have the two narratives. Site exploitation, gathering of cell phones and hard drives and stuff like that. Give me 1 second, people. Check something here. Okay. Just making sure we got enough battery power and my processes are good. Sorry about that. Here we have the two narratives. We have the site exploitation narrative, and now we have the secret target of Yemen raid escaped narrative. Now we know that this administration leaks like a sieve. And we know that this is now February 6, 2007. So what information has leaked? What information has come out? Let's do a little review here. Military and intelligence officials have reportedly said that a deadly special forces raid in Yemen last week was secretly targeting a senior al-Qaeda operative who survived and is now taunting U.S. President Donald Trump in an audio message being shared online. NBC News reports that several anonymous officials said the objective of the January 29th mission was to capture or kill Qasem al-Rimi, the head of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula and one of the world's most wanted suspected terrorists. An audio recording on Sunday purportedly features al-Rimi's voice referring to Trump, who authorized the raid, as the fool of the White House who got slapped early on in his role as commander-in-chief. NBC is reporting that the audio clip was found to be authentic by sources in the military. The Associated Press reports that the audio has not been independently verified, but says that the voice on it is similar to that of previous recordings of al-Rimi. The White House has staunchly defended the operation, despite claims that it did not go smoothly. Officials had been planning the raid since last year, while former Barack Obama, once again, laying it off. Officials cited by NBC News, however, claimed that intelligence was not the primary goal of the raid and that the prospect of capturing al-Rimi was a crucial factor in convincing U.S. leaders that it was worth taking known risk. Boom. Confirmation. Confirmation that intelligence was not the primary objective. So logically, you have to ask yourself the question. The primary objective was al-Rimi, the leader of al-Qaeda in Yemen. When things go poorly, why is this second narrative manufactured? Again, I'll leave you to answer your own questions. NBC cites an unnamed senior White House official who reportedly had direct knowledge of the decisions as saying that Defense Secretary Jim Mattis told Trump that taking out el-Rimi would be a game changer in the war against al-Qaeda. Again, confirmation of the two narratives. Now here I've got three different sources. I've got one dated February 3rd, 2017, another one dated February 22nd, 2017, another one dated to February 27th, 2017. They all say the same thing, that Donald Trump was not present in the Situation Room for this raid. As a team of elite commandos found themselves under unexpectedly heavy fire in a remote Yemeni village last month, 8 time zones away, their commander-in-chief was not in the Situation Room. It's unclear what he personally was doing, but his Twitter account was busy promoting an upcoming appearance on the Christian Broadcasting Network. I will be interviewed by the Brody File on at CBN News tonight at 11 p.m. Enjoy. Read a tweet from President Donald Trump's personal account on Saturday, January 28th. That's the day of the raid. Amid claims that Mr. Trump ordered the operation in the early hours of Sunday morning without sufficient intelligence, ground support, or backup, it has emerged that the president was not in the Situation Room. The president was here in the residence. He was kept in touch with his national security staff. White House spokesman Sean Spicer told reporters Secretary Mattis and others kept him updated on both the raid and the death of Chief Owens, as well as the 4 other individuals that were injured. So he was kept appraised of the situation. It has also been pointed out that in the morning after the attack, one of the first things Mr. Trump did was tweet angrily about the New York Times writing show tweet. Ah, yes. Let me bring up that file. I have the tweet. Where is it? I have the tweet. I know I have the tweet. SEAL training Ryan Owens. I just can't remember what did. Or did I delete it? Because it was unconfirmed. Oh, no. It's on the website itself. I know where it's at. Give me 1 second, people. Sorry. I do so much detail with these presentations. Sometimes I forget where a thing is. Here it is. 8 a.m. January 29th, 2007. So if it's 8 a.m. here in Washington, D.C., add 8 time zones. It's nighttime over there. So what do you think is going on? What do you think is happening? The SEALs are fighting for their life. Here's the tweet. Here it is. This source right here from the Miami Herald, apparently Chief Petty Officer Owens' father lives in Miami, I believe. His father was offered to go and meet Donald Trump at Dover Air Force Base when Ryan Owens, his remains, were flown home. Ryan's father refused to even speak to the president. I told them I don't want to make a scene about it, but my conscience wouldn't let me talk to him. Please note, at the State of the Union the other night, Ryan's wife was present, but not his father. It's important to note that Chief Petty Officer Ryan's father is also a military veteran, I believe United States Navy. USA Today. People are screaming for investigations. The military does have a process for this. There is the traditional after-action report after every battle. Every time we go to battle and every time we come back, we do an after-action report. It's to gather intelligence. It's to conduct, review of the mission. Find out what happened. Did we hit the target? Did we not hit the target? Did we take out the bad guys? Did we not take out the bad guys? Did we lose somebody? How much ammunition was expended? We go over these details in fine detail. We don't miss a thing because it's the details that kill you. Oh, sorry about that. There we go. Get rid of that ad there. But yes, we cover the details. We go over them with a fine-tooth comb. The military is conducting at least 3 reviews of the raid in Yemen last month that resulted in the first death of a U.S. serviceman in the Trump administration, according to the White House and Pentagon. Moving a little further, the January 29th operation instantly became politically charged. The White House pointed to the intelligence scooped up during the raid, again, the intelligence narrative, during the raid, and declared it a success, while Senator John McCain, the Republican chairman of the Armed Services Committee, after a classified briefing, characterized it as a failure for Owen's death and flawed planning of the mission. Now, I don't know about you, but John McCain, Navy fighter pilot, Captain United States Navy, son of a United States Navy admiral, U.S. Senator for God knows how long, as chairman of the Armed Services Committee. I think he knows a hell of a lot more about warfare than, say, Mr. Trump or Previs or Bannon or Kushner. If John McCain calls it a flawed raid, I'm no fan of John McCain politically, but I respect his service. I didn't vote for him back in 2000. I didn't vote for him in 2008. I don't agree with his politics. But I have defended John McCain's military service at every single turn. If John McCain says that the raid was flawed, I'm apt to believe him. This goes on to talk about the father demanding an investigation, saying, "Don't hide behind my son's death to prevent an investigation." Owen said, "I want an investigation. The government owes my son an investigation." Sean Spicer replied to Owen's request for an investigation, saying it is standard operating procedure for the Department of Defense to review missions like the Yemen raid. In this case, according to Spicer, the investigation will be 3-pronged, as the raid involved loss of equipment, loss of civilian life, and loss of a Navy SEAL. Spicer reiterated the importance of the information gained in the raid, which he has repeatedly characterized as helping to save American lives. Again, the intelligence narrative. Again, a defensive response. Again, make up your own mind here. This source comes from the Military Times. During an appearance Tuesday on Fox News, Trump said the January raid on an Al Qaeda stronghold, let's say that fast, was started before I got here, and that generals within the Defense Department were insistent on moving ahead. The president did not identify the generals by name. Navy SEAL William Ryan Owens was killed, and three other U.S. service members were. Ryan Owens was killed, and three other service members. This was something they wanted to do. He said they came to me. They explained they wanted to do what they wanted to do. The generals, who are very respected, the most respected that we've had in many decades, I believe, and they lost Ryan. They lost Ryan. Not we lost Ryan. Not my orders caused the death of Ryan. They lost Ryan. Last time I checked, the United States military is run by one man. That is the President of the United States. Any military operation in the world requires the signature of the President of the United States. Generals follow orders. They don't become generals without following orders. And at that level, you damn well better follow orders, because the consequences are too drastic and too high. The very language of this statement is appalling. The generals did not lose Ryan. The president who ordered Ryan to battle lost Ryan. That is a simple fact. That's not an editorial opinion. That's not a supposition. That's not anything. Trump lost Ryan by ordering him on a military special operation, which resulted in his death. Once again, here at the bottom, according to Defense Secretary James Mattis, the raid was a very successful mission that recovered tremendous amounts of information. Again, note, every time they need to deflect, it's the intelligence narrative. It isn't the leadership narrative. Because the leader's out there taunting them. The leader's out there talking trash, talking about how the fool of the White House got slapped. Let me give you guys another source here. I haven't shown you one in a minute. This next source comes from NBC News. Dated February 28th. Yemen SEAL raid has yielded no significant intelligence. Again, I'm just going to kind of dig a little deeper in here. The White House has repeatedly called the Yemen mission a success. White House spokesman Sean Spicer said on February 8th that anyone who undermines the success of the raid owes an apology and does a disservice to the life of Chief Owens. We gathered an unbelievable amount of intelligence that will prevent the potential deaths or attacks on American soil, said Spicer. A Defense Department official also pushed back Monday afternoon, saying the raid has yielded a significant amount of intelligence, but the only example the military has provided turned out to be an old bomb-making video that was of no current value. Now, I am going to stand up for the military here for a second. I'm going to stand up for the intelligence professionals. If they did gather a lot of intelligence information, it does absolutely no good to walk around and say, hey, look at the great information that we just got. Secrets do you no good if the enemy knows that you have the secrets. So is it plausible that there was some useful intelligence information captured? Yes, it is. It is. You can get mad, you can get angry, you can say Trump sucks, you can do this, you can do that, you can do whatever you want to do. Okay? Point being is we don't know what intelligence information was gathered. I certainly hope it was worth it. I really, really, really do. This source here backs up the narrative about how Trump, in his State of the Union speech, Ryan's legacy is etched into eternity. We will never forget him, said Trump. With that homage to a fallen hero, Trump became President of the United States, period, said Van Jones during post-speech analysis. Not entirely. Even in a moment defined by patriotism and pathos, Trump still ducked full responsibility as commander-in-chief. Instead, the president sought cover behind Jim Mattis, his Secretary of Defense. Mattis, he told his audience, had reconfirmed that Owens was a part of a highly successful raid that generated large amounts of vital intelligence that will lead to many more victories in the future against our enemies. Shouldn't Trump be able to vouch for himself? It was an echo of Trump's comments broadcast during an earlier Fox News interview when he said the Yemen mission was started before I got here. It was said Trump something his generals wanted to do. They lost Ryan. I point this out to you because you have to make up your own mind. I point this out to you because you have to decide, was that political theater using Ryan's wife the way that he did, or was that genuine? I think it's a fair question. I know where I stand. I'm not going to tell you. That's not fair to you guys. These are the facts. These are the words. These are the sources. You make up your own mind. I will say that that language is a bit pejorative. I will say that that language is a bit revealing. We were briefed again yesterday by Defense Secretary James Mattis giving us a summary of the intelligence that was gathered. Pence said in an interview Wednesday with CBS this morning, this was a strike that was directed at obtaining information about the Al-Qaeda operating out of Yemen. We do believe it will lay foundation for victories in the future. NBC has reported that there was no significant intelligence gathered from the raid. That is wrong. Anchor Nora O'Donnell followed up, that is wrong. I can tell you that Secretary Mattis, as recently as yesterday, confirmed again to the administration that there was significant intelligence that was gathered that will lead to American success and to the safety and security of the American people, Pence replied, echoing comments Trump made during his address to Congress March 1st, 2017. Again, the intelligence narrative. These are the facts, people. This is your deep dive. You're going to have all of this information to work with here in the very near future. I'm going to post it up. You'll have all of these links. You'll have all of these quotes. Again, it's not my job to tell you how to think. It's my job to present to you some facts. I do want to go over one last fact. Donald Trump was not in the Situation Room. Even George W. Bush was in the Situation Room. Just think that over. When SEAL Team 6 went to battle against Osama bin Laden, President Obama was in the Situation Room. Vice President Biden was in the Situation Room. The Joint Chiefs of Staff were in the Situation Room. The CIA director is in the Situation Room. And the woman with her hand on her mouth, observing the hard landing of one of the helicopters on that SEAL Team 6 raid, is one Hillary Rodham Clinton, and sitting next to her is a Republican by the name of Robert Gates, the longest Secretary of Defense in history. This is what a responsible president and national security team looks like. When you consider your questions, when you consider your conclusions, I want you to do one thing and one thing only. I want you to remember this face. And I want you to remember the other 4 faces of the 4 servicemen that were wounded during this raid that you haven't seen. It is absolutely critical that you get your conclusions right. We can make all of the $75 million aircraft that we want. You cannot make another Ryan Owens. We can blow up all the civilians in the world that you want. You cannot replace missing legs, shattered arms, fathers to daughters, fathers to sons, sons of fathers, sons of mothers. You can't replace that stuff. It is absolutely critical that you have these facts and that you reach proper conclusions, because men like Ryan are depending on you. You, the American people, to know when it's time to fight, to know when it's not time to fight, and for people who make bad decisions that can't even watch these men fight and die in the defense of your country because a dinner date is far more important, for you, the American people, to hold that man to account. Every time, and this will be my last observation, and it's personal. I usually don't talk like this outside of my wife or my mom, some close friends, fellow veterans, but I'm going to make this personal real quick. We have been at war for 16 years now. I'm a veteran. For 16 years, I've stared at the TV looking for faces that I know. Hoping that I might see them, and praying to God I didn't. And every time one of these soldiers, sailors, airmen, or Marines falls in battle, or gets wounded in battle, I think a couple of things. I think to myself, one, they just killed me. Yes, it's that personal. Because I was once out there. That was me out there. So when one of these servicemen or women, it's important to point that out, when one of them dies, I think to myself, they just killed me. Once I get past that thought, The next thought is, they just killed a friend of mine. They just killed somebody I know. I implore you all. You know veterans. They're in your neighborhoods. Some of you have sons and daughters out there on the line right now. Some of you just appreciate service. You appreciate your freedoms and the cost that it takes. You need to think that personally to yourself. They just killed my neighbor. They just killed my son. They just killed my daughter. They killed my friend. They just killed my fellow citizen. Now, I'm not naive enough to sit here and tell you guys that wars aren't going to happen. They are. They're going to happen. I'm not that stupid. I'm not that naive. I'm not that optimistic. It's just not going to happen, okay? There are going to be wars. And men and women are going to die. It is our duty as American citizens to ensure that they fight for the right reasons, with the right equipment, with the right support, with the right ethics, with the right values, so that when men like this, and when wives like you saw at that State of the Union, in such emotional turmoil, her life completely destroyed, that it's worth it. That it is absolutely worth the cost. Because the cost, the stakes are high. That concludes our presentation. Again, if you're a member of the Maquis Facebook page, you're going to see this information come up very, very shortly. If you are a member of, if you're just on the net, we do have a website. I'd like to explain to you our sources here. The top of the list here is the Maquis Facebook page. www.facebook.com/join the Maquis. Probably most of you guys that I know came from the Facebook page, so you're already aware of this. If you like these, if you like this kind of thinking, if you like this kind of presentation, if you like this type of critical analysis, please share the page. Share it with like-minded people. Share it with people that are open-minded. Share it with the Trump supporter that now has questions. Share it with the Trump supporter that is an ardent supporter. Share it far and wide. This is a public page. I take on all comers. As long as you're not calling me a bastard or a shithead or something like that, and you're actually willing to have a logical conversation, I am willing to talk to you. I am willing to review facts. I am willing to go over opinions. And as long as we can keep it respectful, I'm all about it. The moment you cross that line is the moment you fire on me, I will return fire. You insult me, insult my family, insult this, insult that, insult my service. And I'm gonna go around the maypole a couple of times with you. I'm gonna give as good as I get, and then you'll be out of there. Because I ain't got no time for that. I recently started a Twitter feed. You can find links to all kinds of news sources and other sources. just like what you're seeing here, what I've just presented to you. We also have a WordPress site with a custom domain. It is http://themaquis.online. I'm really proud of that. Me and a friend of mine built it. We've got a couple of different sections. We've got our news section, which is a collection of news articles. And you arrive on a landing page, and in big black letters it says, click on text below to open up the story. And the reason why it works that way is because the website contains all of the links, so that they're all, so you don't have to go all over the, Hell's Half Acre looking at 18 different sources. This is your one-stop shopping for, one-stop shop for information. We've got sources from BBC, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, you name it. Okay? But it's all about one thing. It's all about Trump. Now, to make it work, I've got to put the links on the page. You have to land on the landing page. You have to click on the actionable text and be redirected to the news source. I've had some individuals say, oh, this is fake, and so on and so forth. No, the only thing fake here is your powers of observation, because you can't follow simple directions like click on the highlighted text. That's why it works that way, so that you don't have to go to BBC and CNN and here and there and everywhere. It's all here in one big collection. We work really hard on it, and we're very proud of it. And I challenge any of you, find me one fake news source on it. I dare you. I double dare you, because you won't. The last resource here is the Ustream channel, in which I'm talking to you right now. www.ustream.tv/channel/ a whole bunch of crazy letters. It's probably easier for you to go to Facebook than it is to write all of that down. It's also available on the Maquis website. You've got the news section, you've got the blog section where we've got some creative writings, we've got the media section where you will find videos from a number of different sources, and also on the website there's now a new tab marked live stream. You can catch our webcast there, and this webcast will be recorded and posted up on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on the Maquis website, and even on the Ustream channel in its down below in its archive. So, if you have any questions, you can always come to the Maquis. You can come to any one of these sources and message me. All of the points of contact are listed. I would like to thank you for joining me and indulging me. A number of you guys, real quick, I want to send a special shout out to the team that has been sharing my event post and our event post. I shouldn't say my, I should say we. It's a team. There is no me and team. I really appreciate you guys. You guys feed me so much good information. You share so many stories with me. I've got one. I'm not going to name any names because that's just I'll take the hit here. I've got one person teaching me about agriculture and how illegal immigration is impacting it. And let me tell you guys, I am learning stuff. And, I'm a national security guy, and I'm a computer geek. Okay? I don't know jack about running a farm, but I'm learning. I am learning, and that's going to be a subject that's covered here soon. I'm learning a lot about state level, city level government. I'm learning just all kinds of, different degrees of effort. I'm actually learning how to ask for help. I'm learning how to reach out to people and say, you know what, I need help researching this, and I think that's actually making me a better person. It's definitely making me a smarter person. So, again, special shout out to all of you guys that helped me with this. You know, I don't think I've met most of you. Like I'd say 90% of you. I don't think I've ever met you guys or shook your hand, but I want you to know, you know, our unity of effort has created a special place inside of me, and I deeply thank you for that. So I'll give you my customary sign out. Trump Delinda Est. Make America sane again. And as always, resist. Thank you. And God bless America.